So now that you've learned about allusions in literature, I'm going to explain to you the biblical allusions project that you'll complete. So this is the handout that you got about different allusions and just a short synopsis of them. And so it starts with mythological allusions. You can see some of them here: Aurora, Calliope, all these. And then if you look over, it goes from um, mythological to just allusions from literature. Here's some major ones that we see in literature. So Cinderella and Don Juan, all these, Frankenstein. And then at the end, there are a list of biblical allusions. These are the major ones, and I'll also give you another one that has a lot more that you can choose from, get ideas from. But here are some biblical allusions. You might know a bunch of these stories. And then it ends with historical allusions that you might see in literature. So these are major historical ideas or names. So that's that. And I want to look over the allusions project with you. And this is the major paper that you'll turn in concerning allusions. This will be a major grade. And so you can read this on your own, but basically we're focusing only on the biblical allusion. So you won't necessarily be writing about biblical or mythological allusions or those other ones. You're going to focus on the biblical allusions. How do the ideas in the Bible translate into other pieces? Okay, so we're looking at the ideas in the Bible from a literature perspective, and you'll always read it with a spiritual perspective, but for the purpose of this, we are looking specifically at the ideas in the Bible as literature. And so you're going to write some critical responses. What you're going to do is you're going to find some biblical allusions and write 7 responses to them. These are called critical responses. And so you could find an allusion in a book, a poem, a piece of art, or a cartoon, or anything, a song, using information that you've received in class and on the videos. So each critical response should begin with a well-constructed topic sentence, and each topic sentence should accomplish 2 goals. In your topic sentence, you'll identify the biblical character or the story or the incident that was alluded to, and then identify, in your opinion, the purpose behind the author's use of the particular allusion. And remember, in your critical response, they're not expository in nature. So you're not just summarizing what's happening. You're actually trying to persuade. That's one of your purposes. So you're creating an argument in that topic sentence. After you establish the purpose, you should complete the paragraph by identifying the source of the biblical allusion, by providing relevant concrete details from that source, and by explaining what the author or poet or artist accomplished, or if they could have failed to accomplish it, by including or modifying the biblical source. So you're just writing a paragraph over each allusion that you find, and you'll discuss the concrete details that you see in the source or that you read, explain what the purpose of the allusion is, etc. So please remember to address the effectiveness of the allusion. In order to judge the effectiveness, you will have to argue that the biblical allusion either contributed to or detracted from the purpose of the author, poet, artist. Basically, you're going to have to know what the purpose of the original piece is that you're looking at, and also the purpose of the biblical story or character or idea. So you'll have to know both of those side by side and see how they relate together. You might find an allusion that totally does not work to serve the author's purpose, and that's what you would talk about. You should, when you write each response, you should bring into play all other relevant literature, history, and or current events. So you might really have to explain and summarize some things, but the purpose of them is to respond critically. So I'll let you use one of the sources that I've given you in class that we've talked about. So that's a freebie, and all the other ones that you need to find on your own. And the objective of the project is for you to connect allusions in literature with the references in the Bible. If you find an allusion that's not on the list that I give you, you can completely use it. You just need to give me the reference from the Bible, talk about it. So you'll just write a type double space, MLA formatted paper where each allusion is just a really good paragraph. And I'll give you the due date of that in class. The other part of it is that you will present one of your allusions to class on the due date, and you'll have to have a visual aid. So that could be something as simple as just projecting the cartoon on the board or showing the video. You could have PowerPoint or a Prezi, whatever. It's just something really simple to show to the class. Don't feel like you have to spend a ton of time on that. It could be something as simple as just projecting it on the screen. And I'm going to put a slot on Edmodo where you can turn that visual in the night before we do our presentations. So I'm going to show you guys a sample response to an allusion. So you can find a lot of cartoons and things like that on the internet. Just remember to make sure that it is actually an allusion and not just a funny cartoon about something in the Bible. Okay? Remember that your allusions must be appropriate for the school and honoring to Christ. You might find an allusion that offends you. Don't feel like you have to use it. Here are some websites that you can look at that I like to get my cartoons from. So here's a sample of a response that someone else wrote. Before you start your response, you need to actually include a copy of the allusion. So you need to drag the picture of the cartoon or the advertisement or the quote from literature. You need to put it above your sample response somewhere so that I can see it. And of course, you'll want to give the source where you got that cartoon from. So it might be even something as simple as Google Images, or you found a website that had a bunch of cartoons. Make sure that you're giving credit to those. And then here are some topic sentences that, again, meet the criteria. The first one, the cartoonist satirizes contemporary Israeli aggression against Palestinians over the Golan Heights, etc. So you can see how we're using the word satirizes, or you could use criticizes or attacks, things like that. Those, you should be using the strong verbs that you can find in your yellow pages. So here's a sample response to a cartoon that I don't have. And the source of the allusion is from Genesis 15:17 to 21. And this starts with the topic sentence. It gives some background topic sentence. And it says, in a not altogether sympathetic allusion to the Torah, the first 5 books of the Old Testament, notice how this writer has included these qualifications, these definitions. The Torah is the first 5 books of the Old Testament. This cartoonist criticizes, here's our strong verb, criticizes Israel's use of 4,000-year-old biblical text to resolve modern land disputes. Specifically, the artist mocks, they're getting into more specifics and using these great verbs, modern Israel's biblical claim to the Golan Heights. So that's our topic sentence. I know that you know that the cartoonist is criticizing and mocking, etc. After you do your topic sentence, you just go in and give me some background information, okay? So we're talking about this much disputed region, was among the lands God promised Abraham and his descendants. So you're giving the background, you're connecting it to the Bible, what actually happened. If you need to look up anything, please include the source. It's okay if you have to look up these things and you don't know every single piece of history about your allusion. I highly encourage you to look up whatever you can to help you write these. But please include your MLA citations at the end of each critical response. So if you used a source, you would just put it down here. So then this author goes on to talk about the concrete details. So it talks about the pilot, who is in the plane, who is the prime minister of Israel at that time. There are Israelis, etc. So there are concrete details where this person is just talking about what they see in the cartoon. And then they're adding a little bit of the history in there as well. So that's all it is. And so here we go with the critical part of the response. The potentially uncomplimentary aspect of the cartoon is the fact that the Japanese pilots who wreaked havoc on Pearl Harbor reportedly cried, "Tor, Tor, Tor," during the raid. This additional element increases the effectiveness of the cartoon. So this is your critical response. Tell me if it made it more effective or ineffective, especially for Americans who might not otherwise be concerned with conflicts in the Middle East. With this element, the cartoonist implies, see, that's critical, that's analysis. The cartoonist implies an imperialistic bent in the conservative factions of the Israeli government who use the Torah as part of their justification for refusing to return to the land Israel captured during the 67 war. And then they end on, while the cartoon may be amusing to some, anyone sympathetic to Israel's claim to the Golan Heights could take umbrage. No doubt the cartoonist played on both these possibilities with success. Okay, so this is their critical response to one cartoon. Notice it's one paragraph, but it's a really well-written paragraph, and you're going to write 7 of these. So this is about the size that your paragraphs could be for each of your critical responses. So the grading rubric, 80 points will go toward the typed critical responses. After 3 spelling or grammar mistakes, you'll receive 0 points. So if you need someone to proofread that, or if you have a question, please ask me or someone else. 20 points will go towards your presentation that you do in class with a visual aid. So if you don't turn in the visual aid into the Edmodo slot the night before, that'll be minus 15 points. I want to be able to come to class and just pull up all your visual aids and get going. And so practice what you're going to say. It'll be minus 1 point for each like, or variation of these. So if you need to have notes and just read off of that, that's fine. These presentations, again, are really simple. It doesn't have to be that long. It's just a couple of minutes, okay? So that's your project. And let's look at an example. So here's our example. I'm going to show you a Mercedes commercial and then walk you through how to fill out a practice sheet. And so at the front where it says text, we're going to say Mercedes car commercial. Okay, and we're going to fill out these boxes. So here we're going to write down just concrete details. So we're going to skip down to this box, name some concrete details, and you'll have more than this. Obviously, there are animals going onto a boat. We're assuming this is an ark. Oh, now this is different. Now we have people. People are going onto the boat as well. And they are carrying, what are they carrying? Let's find out. Oh, famous works of art. Mozart, here's some composers, so I'd write that down. Works of art, composers. A piano. Famous sculptures. Miles Davis records. So these people are carrying on these major works of art, these major contributions to our society. So people are carrying they're carrying famous works of art, famous music, statues. So anything I'm remembering, I'm just going to write down. Oops. Ernest Hemingway, a Mac computer. Okay, so Hemingway, computers, and then this is usually in the commercial, this is where the main point comes in. To Mercedes.
If you were loading the ark today, what would you bring?
Okay, so Mercedes enter the ark last. That's probably important. It's the last thing to be loaded on the ark. And then the narrator says, if you were, I don't remember what he says.
The E-Class, perhaps the most desirable car in the world.
If you were on the Ark, I think he said, what would you take with you? I'll have to go listen to it again. With you, Mercedes, the most desirable car on earth, etc. I think he says that. And then the storm comes, and they close the doors, and a drop of water, that's hilarious, I'm assuming it's rainwater, drop of rainwater, and then it says Mercedes-Benz. So there's how you write concrete details down. You just tell me what you see. Let's see if anything else is on there. Notice the music is really, it's almost this triumphant, epic sort of soundtracky type music. It's not jazz, it's not hip hop, it's not, whatever else. It's this really classic type music. So those are some of the concrete details you can write down. And so obviously, what is the story alluded to? Noah's Ark. Okay, and then you go look up the scripture. And then what's the purpose of Noah's Ark? Okay, we talked about it earlier, to show God's wrath and also his mercy, to show how mankind almost restarted. That's a terrible word for that, but etc. So you go in there and you type in everything you can think of about Noah's Ark, what the purpose of the story of Noah's Ark was, and you're looking at it from a literature perspective about how the story was told, what was the point of it. And obviously the point of this Mercedes-Benz commercial, that's this box, is to show the audience that the Mercedes-Benz is the best car on earth, and also the one type of car you would choose to save, right? If you had to. It's that good. And then you would go on, and this is where you get critical. So you have to decide, did the illusion work or did not? And that's when you would go in and fill those boxes in. Okay, I thought it worked because you see the commercial builds up, starting from what we know happened in the story, were the animals, and then extra stuff like, oh, Mozart and Miles Davis and what else was there? Apple Computer. This makes the audience connect with the importance of the things, items that should be saved. We would probably all agree that we should probably take a Hemingway book on to the Ark if the world would be destroyed, or all the Mozart sheet music and Miles Davis records and all those things. This is the commercial building that ethos with the audience. We all kind of agree that these are really important things that have contributed to our society. And if we're going to flood the world and have to start over, these are the things that we're going to want to start our world with. These are the historical parts of our society. And then the whole purpose at the end, the Mercedes-Benz, is the finale of what went onto the Ark. Okay? And then that's how you can connect back to what was actually said, these concrete details. So I think it contributes to the purpose. And then the topic sentence, okay, we're not using to be verbs, we're using our really strong statement. So the commercial, we're going to start really small and then we can build it up later. But the commercial, and using an allusion to the destruction of the world and Noah's Ark. Basically, not persuades. This is the writing process. We need a strong verb. So maybe encourages the audience, and we'll revamp this later. But the commercial, something the audience to see that the Mercedes Benz remains it's the best car, the best or the top or the quintessential vehicle that is worth saving or whatever. So that's something that you could revise in your revising process, but that's the purpose. So that's how you are going to map out your critical response. And then this is how you're just going to write it. You're going to turn this chart into an amazing paragraph, and remember to include the original allusion. So in this case, I would put the link to the commercial at the beginning of my paragraph. And then if I had to look up anything about this story, if I had to go on this website and figure out more about the purpose of Noah's Ark or whatever, I would put that source on there too. So that's how you're going to write your critical response.